All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here. We have a heck of a real talk for you. So I'm excited to be able to introduce these two all-stars in the hospitality and tourism industry. So we have Chelsea Ruby, who's our Secretary of Tourism in the state. And can't get much better interviewing the Secretary of Tourism than with Dr. AJ Alori here, who is an associate professor of hospitality and tourism management at WVU, but also the founding director of the WVU Hospitality and Innovation Technology Lab. So both of these folks here are internationally recognized for their work. I'm excited to learn and listen. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, AJ. So thank you both.
Thank you, Kristen. That was awesome. And this is an honor and privilege to really do the session and guest host with Chelsea. And by the way, I just want to give you a quick bio of Chelsea if you're listening to her for the first time. But most of us in the hospitality program, we all know Chelsea very well with all the things she's done great. But early this year, Chelsea Ruby was appointed Secretary of West Virginia Department of Tourism by West Virginia's 36th Governor, Jim Justice. And actually, if you look at it, this appointment marked an elevation of West Virginia Tourism Office to a cabinet level, where actually Chelsea served as a tourism commissioner for 4 years. This actually talks about why tourism is a pillar of Governor's Justice administration. And as a secretary, Chelsea has done amazing job in the sense like unifying and promoting the state's Almost Heaven brand, and actually helping the tourism development and promote the mountain state to broader audience, which actually we're doing a great job right now. And right now we're featuring West Virginia as a year-round travel destination, not only national, but also the international travelers, and which is really cool. If I have to tell you, under Chelsea's leadership, West Virginia has seen a historic success in the last, few years. By looking at the growth in travel spending, by the way, West Virginia actually outpaced the national growth by more than 10%, just in last 2 years. So, which is really cool to talk about that. In addition, Chelsea and her team got numerous awards for the Almost Heaven brand campaign. This was launched in April 2018, and that received an ESTO Mercury Award for Best Broadcast Television Ad, but also Eddie Award for Best Custom Content Marketing Piece for the 2020 West Virginia Vacation Guide. And by the way, guys, if you don't have this one, this is my favorite, the special edition for Almost Heaven, 50 years of John Denver's Country Roads. And if you don't have this, there is a soft copy on West Virginia website. And this is one of the awesome works that's done to showcase our tourism here in West Virginia, by the way. And not stopping there, I want to give you a quick insight of, Chelsea actually served as a director of marketing and communications in the Department of Commerce. She earned numerous state and regional awards for their social media campaigns, print publications, and so on and so forth. And she was also a member of then Governor Earl Ray Tomlin's communication staff, where she actually played a vital role as an executive director for 150th birthday celebration of West Virginia. She got several awards. She was named Young Practitioner of the Year, as well as she was recognized as one of the West Virginia's 40 top young professionals by Generation Next. Right now, actually, she's serving as the chair of the board of directors for Travel South. She's also in their committee for media relations and advertising as well. If you all know, Secretary Ruby, Chelsea is a graduate of University of Oklahoma, and she went to a rival school. I went to Oklahoma State. I'm a cowboy. But guess what? Both went to rival schools, came here to Mountain State, and we are helping the hospitality and tourism industry, which is awesome. And by the way, Chelsea lives in Charleston, West Virginia, with her beautiful wife, family, husband Steve, and children Robert and Caroline. So Chelsea, it's an honor to have you here on our Real Talk series, and I'm sure this next few minutes will be an opportunity for everybody to learn from your experiences, but also all the great things you're doing. Spearheading the effort to make West Virginia the preferred destination choice for travelers, whether it's a leisure, recreation, business they're seeking. I know they can find it here, and we are happy that you are spearheading this great team and doing great things. So welcome, Chelsea, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thanks to our friends at Vantage Ventures, Sarah, Kristen, Ali, everyone there. They do amazing work. So I'm thrilled to even be asked to do this. And I thank all of you for your time and joining today. AJ gave a very long list of all the things that happen here at the tourism office, but I'll tell you, it's a great team effort. We have a huge team, not only here, but we've got partners across the state in various positions, whether it be convention and visitors bureaus, hotels, attractions, and we're all working together to promote tourism in West Virginia. So thank you for having me.
And by the way, Chelsea is a good friend and partner of the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program. She's part of our advisory council as well. So thank you, Chelsea, for all your support as always.
Of course.
So let's get started with our chat. Chelsea, can you open us up with a brief background about what led you to West Virginia and your first position with West Virginia Office of Travel and Tourism?
Yeah, sure. So I moved to West Virginia about 11 years ago now. I'm originally from Oklahoma. Like he said, I went to school at the University of Oklahoma, and then I moved to DC. I was working on Capitol Hill, doing some communications. I met my husband, who is from West Virginia, and we moved back here, and I've been a proud West Virginian ever since. So my first job in West Virginia was I was the chair of the state's 150th birthday. It feels like it was forever ago. I really didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't understand how proud people in West Virginia were of their state. I grew up in Oklahoma, and people in Oklahoma love Oklahoma, but not in the same way that people in West Virginia really love West Virginia. So I signed up, I took this position, was in charge of this celebration. And I'll never forget, on that day, I was standing out here on the Capitol steps, and there were about 50,000 people on the steps watching for that final night, watching the big fireworks. And they were all singing Country Roads. And I just thought then, like, this is my home. This is where I'll be forever. It was just hard for me to believe how proud and how excited people were about this state's birthday. So that was kind of my introduction to West Virginia. That was what made me fall in love with this state. From there, I worked in Governor Tomlin's press office. Then I moved over and was working on handling the marketing for West Virginia state parks. I love our park system. We really tried to move them forward. When I started there, they still had their reservations on a fax system. You had to fill out a form and fax it in. This was not that long ago. So we transitioned that over. And then when Governor Justice came into office, I interviewed and got the job and have been with him ever since. So it's been a great journey. Definitely the honor of a lifetime. Working for the governor, it's such an exciting time for tourism in West Virginia. Never have we had such amazing support from the very top down. The governor, from every campaign event he had to his inauguration address and everything else, he's always talked about how we're not doing enough for tourism. And he hasn't just talked about it. He's taken a lot of actions to change things. And we've gained incredible support from the legislators, from our county officials, our local officials. Since I've been here, we've tripled the budget, the marketing budget for the state. Like AJ mentioned, we have elevated it to a cabinet level position. But the state has really made a statement that tourism is going to be a big part of our economy, that it's a bright spot, it's a growth area. So we're investing substantial resources. And like you said, we're getting really great results.
Chelsea, I can't agree with you. Exciting time to be here in West Virginia. If you are part of hospitality and tourism, and if you're passionate about it, this is the place, right? Yeah. And I agree with you. When you look at Oklahoma, the way people like Oklahoma versus West Virginia, and that's one reason I'm here. There is you love the mountains, and then you like this place, and becomes part of your home, right? Obviously, So let's transition our discussion to West Virginia travel, tourism, and of course, outdoor economy, which is a big piece for us.
Yep.
As you all know, West Virginia has been so well regarded for its untapped nature and beauty. So Chelsea, can you share with us a bit of behind scenes of your day-to-day operations at the tourism office? You talked about your team, how much of partners and all the things, and how you and your team actually execute your work on a regular basis.
Yeah, so let me back up to when I first took this job about 5 years ago. We spent the first 6 months that I was here, we didn't put out anything new. We continued running everything and operating the same way that we had for years. We did a lot of research to figure out how can we grow tourism in West Virginia. At the time, we had seen 3 years of decline. We weren't sure why all the states around us were growing and our numbers were shrinking, but we knew we had to do something. So we started really looking into how do we get more first-time visitors? We do really well with return visitation. 87% of people who come to West Virginia come back. Our problem is that we don't get the return visitors at the same rate that our surrounding states do. So we knew we had to get more, but we weren't sure why weren't they coming. So we did one study that I think was most important and really looked at why aren't they coming? We thought that we would find problems with stereotypes about West Virginia, misconceptions, things like that. We didn't. What we found is that they had no information about West Virginia. We weren't even on their list as a possible tourism destination. They didn't think about us. They listed places all across the US, but we weren't making anyone's list. So what we've been doing since then is dedicating all of our time and resource to putting West Virginia on that list, making us known as a national and international travel and tourism destination. So we do it a number of different ways. So you asked, how are we set up? What does a day in our office look like? So we've got an administration team who keeps us organized, keeps things moving, keeps the bills paid. We also have a visitor services team. Our visitor services team runs not only our call center, but they operate the 8 welcome centers around the state. They work with partners to get materials out. They're really the front lines. They also go to events. They manage our Airstream trailer. They're really interacting with the public the most. We've got a partner programs team. Partner programs works on the development side of tourism. So a lot of folks, when they think about what our office does, they only think about the marketing side, the ads that you see, the social media, but there's this whole other part of our office, development. So that team works with partners. I see Susan Riddle on here from the CVB. They're in the Morgantown area. But we have partners across the state like Susan who work with us to buy advertising, to do various programs with us. So that team handles that. They also work with new businesses coming in and existing businesses who want to expand in the industry to provide resources, to connect them with tax credits, various things. And then our other team deals with the marketing and public relations. So those are the things that you see in here, the ads that you see, but they're also responsible for a lot of behind the scene work that goes into getting us on those lists. You know, we most recently got Lonely Planet to say that we were the second best destination in the world behind Iceland. And it was a huge, huge win for us. And that takes a lot of work. It's developing relationships with those people, bringing them in, letting them know what a hidden gem we are. So that team is also responsible for all that great work.
That is awesome, Chelsea. I mean, I didn't look at the recent one from Lonely Planet. That was really cool to be the second in the international destinations, and that's kudos to what your team is actually doing. We've seen so many big changes, obviously, right, in the advances this year in the outdoor economy in West Virginia. So, Chelsea, this past year has been challenging for everyone, right? What can you share with us about how you managed to create a vibrant outdoor economy, and in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah. So the pandemic has obviously been challenging for everybody. But if there is one great thing that came out of the pandemic, it's that millions and millions of Americans fell in love with the great outdoors. It's become a part of your daily life. I even think about my own family. My kids every weekend are like, so what are we doing now? And it wasn't before. I mean, I hate to admit it, but we weren't out exploring and doing things every single weekend. There were a lot of weekends where we did, but there were ones where we didn't. And now my kids think that's a part of what you do every day. And I think that has become the norm for so many people. So right now, 91% of Americans say they're going to take a trip in the next 6 months. So we're seeing a lot of the hesitancy from COVID starting to wane. But we're seeing that 67% of those are saying they want to spend more time outdoors. So we continue to see more and more people wanting to be outside, which that number honestly surprised me because so many people are already outside. It was hard for me to believe that 2/3 felt like they still needed to be outside more. So we continue to see that. What it's meant for the state is more movement. We do a lot of tracking to look and see where people are in the state. We use cell phone tracking data to get an idea of how far people are traveling across the state, how long they stay when they go to various areas. So we're seeing a couple different trends. First, we're seeing West Virginians moving around the state more. We're seeing those short day trips, those weekend trips at a higher rate than we saw them before. The second thing we're seeing is people escape those big cities and come here. We've seen increased visitation the last 6 months or so, outpacing 2019 numbers. So before the pandemic, we're still seeing more people come. And then the last thing that I think I would say that's happened as a result of the pandemic, and this may surprise all of you, is increased investment. When I started this job, the split of time I spent between marketing and development was probably 80% marketing, 20% development. I'll tell you that today, my day has been 80-20. I have spent an incredible amount of time on new hotels, new attractions, tax credit applications, grants, all these different things. For the first time since I've been here in West Virginia in the last year, we have people calling us, like cold calling us, saying, we want to invest in your state. We see your tourism numbers, we see your hotel occupancy, we see you in these rankings, and we would like to come invest. And that's just such an exciting thing to suddenly have this interest. I feel like, 5 years ago, we were struggling to get people to know we were a destination. And today, we're trying to find enough projects for these people to fund. So it's really, really exciting. Without a doubt, COVID has been a terrible thing for the country and for the world. But I will say the silver lining in it all is that people love the outdoors.
That's awesome, Chelsea. In fact, actually, I was, thinking marketing, if you want to do the right marketing, the action item of investments really popped out. So the way you actually did the marketing very well, brought in more investments. Now you're focusing on more on the investing side, which is really, what it should be as a tourism office. So I'm really glad your team is doing that. So with the Brad and Ali Smith's generous donation to the state, to improve the outdoor economy, what do you see are some of the key things you can share with us about travel and tourism, but also continuing to make it viable and accessible for folks from around the world? Because we see a lot of interest from international people to come down to Morgantown, to West Virginia, and stay here. So what do you see in that regard?
Yeah, so it's been a real honor over the last year to partner with the OEDC. I see Christina on here, and the whole team there on working to see how can we bring Brad and Elise's vision to life, and how can we attract more remote workers to West Virginia. So you may wonder, what is our role in that? How does tourism connect with that? I'll tell you that the same reasons that we are a top tier tourism destination are the same reasons that we can be and we will be a top tier remote work destination. All the things that make us a great place to visit also make us a great place to live. I personally love this project because, like I said, I moved here with my family from a larger city. I now have a 5-minute commute, whereas I had a 45-minute before. My kids have a waterfall in their backyard. We didn't have any green space in DC. It's just a wonderful place to live. So we're looking at this program as an opportunity to be an extension of the brands. We really take that almost heaven lifestyle. If you look at the ads for Ascend, if you look at the website, it's all very similar. It all coordinates in with the Almost Heaven brand because, again, we are selling that same product. So it's been amazing. It's been really fulfilling to see the applications come in, and even more fulfilling to see some of our Ascenders start showing up in Morgantown. I know there were a couple that signed up for today. So if you guys are on here, it's great to have you. But it's been really great to see kind of that final step of tourism. Before they ever move here, they're going to come here and visit. So it's all this evolution, and helping the state try to shape that has been a real honor.
That's awesome, Chelsea. And talking about the Ascend program, how have the communities rallied around your efforts? Like, you talked about, the major, role you played with Brad and Ali's, gift, but how the communities rallied around these efforts.
That's the thing that I think has been so amazing about it, is we weren't sure what to expect. Initially, we rolled out with a couple of cities. Know that there's a longer term goal of bringing in at least 1,000 workers in 5 cities. But we've got 55 counties and we've got hundreds of municipalities to work with. And what we've seen here is we've really seen people rally together. Although Ascend only has a certain number of host cities so far, we have Morgantown, Lewisburg, and Shepherdstown. We're also looking at the statewide effort. How do we help every community in West Virginia get ready for remote workers? We've developed a playbook. We've done dozens and dozens of calls with local leaders who want these programs in their area and are working to help them. One of the things that has been really cool is there's a couple of cities that have stepped up and said, hey, we want to do this on our own. We're ready to go. Charleston's an example of that. Beckley is an example of that. Marion County has a program. And so we've said, that's great. We will feature them on all the Ascend marketing to the folks who aren't selected for Ascend. We're going to send those leads there. And all of those other programs have told us that they now have enough applications to really start running their own program just off of the branding and the work we've been doing from Ascend. So it's been a great statewide effort. I continue to look forward to working with other communities as they take the bold step to try to bring their communities up to the standards that these remote workers are looking for.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear the game plan that you have can apply in other, places in the state, and that would be great for these communities as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of funding. There's a lot of funding that comes in through federal grants, through various agencies and state government, but then also through federal agencies. And so we've got a playbook that we've developed for remote worker communities to say, here's 5 key areas to focus on. And for each one of these key areas, if you want to better your community, here are resources you can apply for. So we don't just want to tell them, here's the areas you improve. We want to also arm them with the tools that they need to actually improve in those areas.
Awesome. And while we focus on outdoor economy and things like that, how can entrepreneurs actually service the travel and tourism industry and the overall outdoor economy initiatives?
Yeah, so we have an amazing, amazing state for outdoor recreation. We've all heard it, we know it, we experience it. But if you think about it, we're the only state entirely within the Appalachian Mountain Range. We're the 3rd most forested state. We've got these amazing variations in elevation, which means that we really do have 9 very different travel regions. And we've got 4 seasons. The only thing that we're really missing in that equation is access. When we look at growing the outdoor economy, to me, it's all about bettering our access. So there's various barriers to entry, whether it is access to the river, where we need river access points, or it's more trails, or it's software to help people find those trails, or it's marketing to tell people where these things are. All of it's about making the outdoors more accessible. So we work on that, not just from the marketing side, but also on the development side to try to figure out, how can we create systems of trails? How do we create networks? I think every community in West Virginia right now has a trail project going on. I'm really, really excited about those. But what we want to work to do over the next couple of years is get them together to build systems of trails. So I see Preston on here from Snowshoe, and Snowshoe has done a wonderful job of working with the whole community there, the county, the surrounding counties, to really to build a network of trails, to build a destination. So we don't just want to be a place you can come and ride or hike or bike for a day. We want to be a place you can come to for an entire week. So those are the things we're looking to do. But at the end, I still always go back to, it's reducing the barriers to entry. It's getting more people to be able to experience what we have. We have plenty of natural lands. We have a great abundance of parks, national state parks, county parks, city parks. We just got to make them more accessible.
That's awesome. And I mean, I agree with you. Access is one of the things where, entrepreneurs are looking for more opportunities to go to places and establish in the West Virginia, right? But how will you work with entrepreneurs so that they can service the travel and tourism industry and obviously, focus on the overall outdoor economy in West Virginia?
Yeah, so that's the really cool thing that we're starting to see happen. So one example, just a recent one that I was working on here today, is the Elk River Rail Trail. It's the state's newest state park. It's in Clay County. It'll eventually go up to Braxton County and back down to Charleston. It's been open, sections of it have been open for about 6 months now. The really cool thing that we're seeing is small businesses open up on that trail. So we've got a couple of companies who are now renting kayaks because we have some new water access points. We've got a cabin company that is done a lot of work in Clay and is continuing to expand and do more and more there. They've got trails, they've got a petting zoo, they've got some yurts, they've got all kinds of stuff going in. But this is what we see. We've seen it on the Hatfield McCoy trails. We've seen it in the Mon Forest towns. We've seen it across the state where we go in and create better access to the outdoors. Then we open up opportunities for private businesses to come in and invest. So we're excited about it. We are working hard to build up more capacity in our office to work with those folks. But if there's anybody on here who's interested in starting a small tourism business or wants to talk to us about one idea that they have, even if you don't have funding for it, feel free to call us. We've got a team who goes through those ideas we can connect you with various folks. We've got some of the most aggressive tourism development incentive programs in the country here in West Virginia that we can bring in these investors with.
That's awesome. And by the way, everyone in the session here, feel free to post your questions in the chat. We can always, ask Chelsea if you have anything, based on all the discussion we're having here. Feel free to use the chat and throw out your questions, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So Chelsea, what are the key takeaways you can share with us about the implementation of Ascend West Virginia? We're not only bringing people into West Virginia, but also there's entrepreneurship. There is also a lot of access to destinations now. So what are the top key takeaways?
Yeah, so I would say the top two takeaways. Number one is we have to keep telling our story. So that just isn't about our office putting ads on national TV. It's also about all of you posting on social media where you go every weekend. So we know that over 70% of people get their vacation ideas from their friends or family's social medias. So people often laugh at me when I tell people that's the number one thing I want them to do, but that's what I want you to do. I want you all to post somewhere you go this weekend on social media, use the hashtag almost heaven, but help us share that West Virginia story. So the number one takeaway is we've got to keep telling our story. We've got to be louder. We've got to go further. We're now looking at advertising in about 9 different international regions that we're focusing on. So we're trying to go further, but we can always take all the help we can get from proud West Virginians. So that's takeaway one. Takeaway two is that we need to think bigger. We need to continue talking to folks who want to invest in West Virginia, and we need to continue working with folks around the state to develop potential opportunities. And then we need to match those two things together. I truly believe that 10 years from now, we're going to have a lot more tourism infrastructure in the state, not just in trails, but also in hotels and vacation rentals, in restaurants. We're building capacity now, but I really think we're just getting started. So those are the two things: keep telling our story, and two, keep developing, but on a larger level, a larger scale.
That's awesome. So one of the things that I'm looking at from the key takeaways, Chelsea, is how can my students be an entrepreneur in the tourism industry? What are your suggestions in that regard? We talk about this is an exciting time to be here, but a lot of the students that are here and people from the community that are here, how can really focus on entrepreneurship in the tourism industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, it all starts with that idea. So what is the idea? So it's figuring out where are people going and what needs are there. Every community in West Virginia, I would tell you, has a pretty unique need for what they need. If I think about places like the Southern Coalfields, in the Hatfield-McCoy Trail areas, we're seeing huge numbers of increased visitation, but we don't have enough lodging. So in that area, what we need are cabins. We need ATV outfitters. So we need people who are going to rent the ATVs. There's a number of different opportunities. If you look in other regions, we may need more vacation rentals. If you look in an area like the Potomac Highlands, what we need there is housing for workers. So anybody who's interested in getting involved in the industry, what I would tell you is, where do you want to be? Let us help you figure out where you want to be. Then let us help figure out what are the needs of that area and try to work together to figure out the best path forward. If you're a student on here and you're interested in working with us, please send me an email. I'm going to drop my email in here in just a second. We are always looking for interns. I love to have interns. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had some people who took great care of me as an intern. So I'm very passionate about interns. I think I saw one of our interns on here a little bit ago. I'm not seeing him now, but Christian Casso has been one of our, there you are, has been one of our interns in the past, and I think is even coming back for us over the break. So I will always take interns. So please shoot me an email with your resume if you're interested. If you're graduating and you're looking for a job, likewise, send me information. We have hired, I would say about half of our staff here is someone who we've hired right out of school. So if you're thinking, I don't have enough experience to work in the tourism office, yes, you do. We will take you, we will train you, and we will be very excited about it. So we're just thrilled to see so many people joining the industry. The recent projections show we could have as many as 9,000 new jobs in the industry annually for the next 10 years. So we need to get more people trained and more people entering. So I'm so excited to see this many people interested. So please reach out if I can help in any way.
That's great. Chelsea, Frank has a question. You did talk about internships and all, but for a lot of students in the tourism industry, what are their career paths? What are the ways that how they can look at themselves, in the next few years in the post-pandemic world?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. The tourism industry really encompasses a number of different jobs and career paths. So, depending on how extensive or inclusive you want to be in your definition of hospitality and travel jobs, we have between 50 and 78,000 West Virginians who work in the industry. So many of those are service jobs. So those are going to be people who are guiding your rafting trips, who are helping you out on the ski slopes, who are at gas stations, who are at restaurants. But the place where we really have a gap right now, a skills gap in West Virginia, is those upper level hospitality jobs. So we need people to be revenue managers. We need people to work in the offices of these resorts. We need people to help with visitor services, to help with the convention and visitors bureaus. So there's a very wide definition of what hospitality and tourism is. And I think it's really important too, before you guys jumped on, we were talking about WVU's program and not only the growth in the full-time kids who are doing majors, but also in minors. It's a fantastic minor for somebody who's looking at business management, looking at accounting, but might want to do revenue management for a hotel. There's a lot of different ways to go with it. And if you're staying in West Virginia, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for years to come in the industry.
And you're absolutely right, Chelsea. I think a lot of our students are, figuring out that, doing minors, but also area of emphasis and focusing on areas they can definitely be in hospitality and tourism. But we need to really, again, speak loud about, the opportunities there and, get our students excited, because it's a perfect time to be here in West Virginia if you are excited about hospitality and tourism, right?
Yeah, most of those higher level jobs that are being hired right now in the industry, they are going out and recruiting people from out of state. So if a hotel needs somebody to run that hotel, for the most part in West Virginia right now, we see them do a national search and bring in somebody. If I think about the resorts in West Virginia, I think all of them except for maybe one is run by somebody that they've brought in. So I would love to see more folks graduate in that program, stay here at home to help us in the Mountain State.
Absolutely. And by the way, Susan Rill was talking about CVBs also offer internships. So there are plenty of opportunities if you are a student here. And by the way, our program has 100% placement. We can have actually more students and still keep up with that 100% the way the hospitality and tourism is growing in the state. But also, they can really get these experiences here and stay here, which is something that we definitely want to do as a hospitality program. Let's transition to some of the closing comments, Chelsea, and I want to leave some room for any questions the audience may have at the end. But if you were sitting in the seat 3 years from now, and which we hope you will, but what are some of the key outcomes you would like to see from your role in West Virginia's future?
Yeah, so I hope if I'm thinking about, kind of leaving my mark and where do I want things to stand, I would say I hope that West Virginia is among that tier. I hope that when the national survey is done every year, it's called the Portrait of the American Traveler, and they say, where do you want to go on vacation? I hope we rank in that top 10. That's what we're working towards. We want to be on everybody's it list. There's been a lot of excitement about a number of different destinations, Wyoming being one of them, Iceland. There's been some really hot destinations over the years, and we want to be the next hot destination. So I would say that we want to continue telling our story. The other thing that I hope that we continue to do is grow our regional partnerships. West Virginia is very unique in the way that you experience it. If you think about going on vacation to New York City or to Myrtle Beach or Washington, D.C., you can probably stay an entire week, maybe even 2 weeks, and not go more than 5 or 10 miles. You're going to stay at a hotel, you're going to explore all around, but you're probably not going to travel too far. In West Virginia, people often come to one place, and we don't do a great job of telling them the other places. So in West Virginia, we can still build you that 1-2 week itinerary of doing anything that you want to do, but it may require a jump from one place to the other. Now I'll tell you, it's always going to be a beautiful country road that you're going to be traveling on. But we have to do a better job of connecting those dots for people and telling them, if you come and stay at this place, you want to then go 3 hours north and go to this place for a very different, unique experience. So I hope we continue building those regional partnerships. Susan has been a great leader on that, of really not just looking at Morgantown or Mon County, but looking at the whole region and trying to say, how can we promote this region as a place to stay? Because I would bet you that there's not a single person on this call who can tell me what county they went to on their last vacation. That's not the way we plan vacations. And so we've got to progress from that. It's the way funding is set up here, but we've really got to get outside of that and think about, how do you visit our state?
That's awesome, Chelsea. So one of the questions from the audience is, I mean, of course, we're talking a lot on outdoor tourism, but this question is like, do you think this could cause problems on the other hospitality and tourism sectors due to lack of marketing, because we're focusing more on outdoor now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And that's something that we've actually spent a lot of time looking into, because we don't just promote the outdoors in West Virginia. We want to help every single county and every single business. When we have done research about what people experience when they visit West Virginia, in the top 3 things that they always say, it has something to do with the landscape. They think about the mountains. They think about the serenity. They think about the sense of place where they are. So when you see ads for us, you're always going to get that sense of place. You're going to see those beautiful mountains. You're going to see those rolling hills. You're going to see waterfalls. And I know that not every person who sees those ads wants to go hike up to that waterfall. And not every person wants to kayak, but they do want to be in the mountains. So whether they're shopping or they're swimming or they're going to museums, the thing that they recall about their experience first is generally not the museum, it's the mountains. So we try to mix the things together. We do have a lot of areas of focus that are outside of outdoor. I was just on a call earlier today about some historical sites. We also are looking into some niche campaigns that we'll be launching at the beginning of next year relating to culinary experiences and motorcycles. So we kind of cover the whole array of things, but at the end of the day, I would tell you it's all tied back to natures and the outdoor.
That's awesome, Chelsea. We have a question from Kristen. How has the new River Gods new status as the new national park impacted West Virginia tourism as a whole?
Christian is probably asking this question because he remembers from working here that in everything we are doing right now, we are talking about the new national park. The new national park has been a great boom for tourism in West Virginia. It doesn't just help that area, and it doesn't just help that region. It really elevates the status of our state as a tourism state. National park designations are kind of the gold standard for a lot of travelers. There are people who travel around and they go from national park to national park. And so it's just one more way that we've been able to actually raise our profile as a tourism state, as a destination. Specifically in that area, we've seen great increases. The last numbers I saw were about a week and a half ago, and that area is up 48% in visitation compared to pre-pandemic levels. So since that designation, we have seen a great boost.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. National parks everywhere in the country, you see an impact on the overall state, not just that region. So which is really cool. One more question, Chelsea. What do you think the biggest thing in West Virginia is bringing people from other states to visit?
If you look at traveler preferences post-pandemic, you're going to see 3 things. At the very top of any survey list, you're going to see outdoor recreation. The second thing you're probably going to see is road trips. And the third thing you're going to see is some variation on small towns, whether it's culture, whether it's dining. Those are the 3 things. Those 3 things are West Virginia. So when all the other states were scrambling to figure out what should their campaigns be post-pandemic, I said, well, we've got ours ready to go. We had it last year and we can hit go because that's what we have. Those are our greatest assets. The outdoors, that were very accessible to much of the United States. So our accessibility and the increase in road trips. And then the third one is our small mountain towns. Being able to say that we don't have a single city in the state with 60,000 people it always stops people in their tracks. When we're doing these meetings at trade shows and meeting with new journalists and tour operators, they say, really? You don't have any big cities? And while that used to be kind of a strange thing, it's something people are excited about now. People want to live like a local. They want to go in, they want to get a vacation rental, they want to go to a brewery, and they want to go to a hole in the wall that locals love. And so we are the perfect place to do that.
Absolutely. One more question regarding, what kind of services can we offer potential outdoor tourists, especially the ones that have physical disabilities?
That's something that we have really been looking at. How do we make the outdoors more accessible? So there are a number of different grant funding sources for communities who are interested in doing ADA upgrades to their facilities. I know that in the state park system, in the national park system, that's a top priority. The new Elk River Trail, I was just looking yesterday, all the facilities there are going to be ADA accessible. So that's an important part of our strategy moving forward. It's something that we should be doing, and it's something we'll continue to do. If you are a business or if you know of a tourism business in West Virginia who needs assistance making things ADA accessible, please let us know.
Awesome. That's a great way to really get input from people to really, see what are the main points are there. Chelsea, can you share with us any new technology being used in West Virginia with regards to recreation parks, landmarks, historical sites, and things like that?
Yeah, so we use a lot of different technologies to reach out to folks. But one in particular, I'll just mention that we're working on is a new software called Bandwango. Bandwango is a platform. I think there are 12 states that have signed on to start using Bandwango, and they basically make these mobile passports that people can go to a certain place, scan a code on their phone, and check in there. It's a way to create trails. So one of the first ones that they did was a taco trail in Kansas City. And people would go to all of these. So we are now investing in the software, and we are going to start building trails across West Virginia. So we've got a couple that we're working on. If you guys have suggestions for other trails, let us know. But that's one of the trends that we're seeing, is that people like to do these trails. Again, it goes back to the regionality discussion that I had, getting people moving around the state. So that's just one example of a software. But we're always looking for new things. I believe we're going to be a state to pilot a new technology that relates to social media and influencers, and taking their content and building them into Google Stories. So that's something we're going to be working on too. So I'll share more about that next time.
That is awesome. Are there other West Virginia areas under consideration for national designations, such as Blackwater area or Arthurdale Heritage Area, and so on and so forth?
The answer to that is I don't know. That really happens at a federal level. So there are certainly other places that I think deserve that recognition. But that would take, getting it through Congress again. So I hope so. But I don't know of any specific efforts going on that right now. We do have a lot of great national areas. So people obviously know about the New River. Harper's Ferry is a national historic park, which is kind of a niche type of national parks, very, very popular. But then we've got some other national heritage areas around the state that do really well as too. So there's a lot of exciting things happening through the National Park Service. We have received great support from the entire congressional delegation, not only through that designation, but also through a number of federal appropriations like the Land Water Conservation Fund, the Great American Outdoors Act. So we are extremely grateful for all the support we're getting.
That's awesome. We have actually several great questions in here. But let me ask you this one. How do you envision the Summit Bechtel Reserve, or sometimes like the Virgin Hyperloop project that's coming in, being used to boost the tourism here?
All of these things give us a great advantage because they put us on a national level. They elevate us and give us a lot of prominence around the world. So Virgin Hyperloop, if I think back to that project, when West Virginia was selected, I'll never forget that day. I mean, people were just like, what? West Virginia? Nobody even thought we would be on that list. And every time that we get into one of these lists, when the Boy Scouts picked us, when the VHO folks picked us, all of these different things, Lonely Planet, they continue to build this excitement about the state, and we're becoming kind of a household name. That's what we want. We want people to be hearing about us in positive ways all the time. So they're all helping us. We couldn't be more excited. Data Robot, there's so many companies who are finding their homes in West Virginia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are several questions in here, Chelsea. I think we'll probably take one and maybe wrap it up. And you can share any final thoughts you might have. But one of the questions from Stephen is, would a network of tourism sponsored transit options such as bus, shuttle, or train, that goes from region to region, can that be considered to appeal to those who may not want to rent a car coming to a big city for them to drive, here? Possibly around the itinerary they have and find international trips with companies like Globus or something like that. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are some barriers to transportation around the state, right? It's not easy to get from one side of a mountain to the other. So certainly those are all things we should be looking at. How can we more easily move people around the state? I've heard of a couple of communities recently looking at getting some cars, some ride sharing cars put in their communities. That's a big thing in other cities, that you can go and sort of like Airbnb, you can borrow a house, you can borrow a car. It's not something that's made its way to West Virginia, but I've been really excited to hear we've got two communities looking into actually getting some cars for their town to put out for people who come in, maybe on a train or on a bus and are looking to get around. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to figure out how can we make it easier for people to get from one side of the state to the other.
Great. And the last question to wrap up, I think Tanya has a good question. I want to know this too. Can you tell us one of your favorite places in the Mountain State?
You are not going to get me to pick a favorite. No chance. I'm not doing it. But I will tell you, we've got 9 great travel regions, and we've got thousands and thousands of people across the state who are going to welcome you to any corner that you want to go to. But you're not getting me to pick a favorite today.
That's what I thought. I want to know this, but absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
So
not doing it. No, but honestly, we've got a lot of great places. Like when I travel around, I find these kind of hidden gems, and I always think, "Gosh, nobody knows this," but I can't say that
that's
because
true.
then I'm like, "Wait, it's my job to tell people." But
That's
we've
true.
got to do that. We've got to figure
Yeah.
out, how do we tell people about these hidden gems? And I think there's a lot of places. Earlier I mentioned a new business on the Elk River Trail. That one's called Walker Creek Farms. Like there's places like that that we just don't know about that are all over the state. So I encourage all of you to get on our website, find one of those, order one of those travel guides that AJ held up at the beginning. You can get one free on our website. Just go online. We'll mail it to you. You'll have it in 2 days, and it'll tell you a lot of hidden gems.
And there's a soft copy of this. I use that a lot when I'm on the go, but this is always in my library all the time, So, Chelsea, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I just want to say thanks to all of you for joining. So we are so, so excited about the participation, not just today, but every day and everything that we're doing. There's so much excitement from the local level all the way up to the governor and up to our congressional delegation of people who want tourism to be a part of the future of their community. So thanks to all of you for what you're doing to help increase visitation in your area and to welcome people into the communities. We have the easy job of telling people where to come. You guys have the hard job of welcoming them into your communities, and you're the reason that they keep coming back. So thank you for everything that you're doing. We appreciate each and every one of you. And if you're a student needing a job, send me an email. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome, Chelsea. And as you can see in the chat, everybody is so thankful for your time and your insights. And we are so honored to have you here and this time. But hopefully, we'll see you here physically sometime soon, so that you get to talk to our students, visit our HIT lab. But we appreciate all your efforts and spearheading the effort to make West Virginia a preferred destination choice. And we look forward to talking to you more. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thanks again to our friends at Vantage. We appreciate everything you guys do.